Afternoon. We're here with Sophia Withers from EcoGen Technologies. How are you doing, Sophia?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Just been working a lot back in the UK regarding trying to find sort of investment and partnerships and researchers for our business. So I'm doing very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good too, thank you. Sounds like you've been busy. So let's go straight in then. If you'd like to give us a little bit more background as to who you are, what you do, and then how long you've been doing it for, please.
Absolutely. So essentially, I am in the decentralized energy and blockchain space. I've been in the blockchain space since about 2018, and I'll take you through sort of a chronological order of the environment that I work in. So I initially started by researching blockchain for social impact. I've always been fascinated by ways in which we can deploy technology to better serve communities that need it most. I then dabbled in a few startups, one of which was a fintech startup. And then I also worked for an accelerator as a program manager. So essentially where I'm at now is I've been working and also co-founded a really exciting decentralized energy company called EcoGen. And basically what we're trying to do is enable the renewably powered shift to clean energy for anyone, anywhere. And we are essentially we've built a prototype of a renewable energy generator, which uses all different sorts of different renewable energy sources and can help communities get access to energy, can help businesses get access to energy. So it's a really exciting space to be in. And obviously it's very topical with, every second media article covering energy. So that's a
Brilliant. Very, very relevant, obviously, in the times that we're looking at now. So just to kind of go back a little bit then, in terms of 2018 and covering the pandemic, sort of beyond 2018 into where are we now, 2022, and those last few years, what was the biggest impact of COVID for you guys?
So we actually started at the end of 2021, so more towards the tail end of COVID. Now, I think COVID has brought a number of opportunities, just as much as it brought a lot of obviously sadness and chaos to our lives. But basically, through the power of autonomous, like everyone working remotely, it's kind of fostered. I feel like COVID has fostered the future of work and how teams can work remotely and things like that. But I guess the biggest takeaway from COVID is nobody's safe, no structures are safe. Like we have to act fast and innovate. And if you look at global economic downturns, which obviously COVID contributed to, there's always going to be opportunities to start businesses. That's obviously basic cycle of economics, but we're essentially through COVID, we saw the rise of digital coins and offerings. We saw the rise of blockchain. It was starting to get imminent towards 2018, 2019. And then as there was COVID, there was obviously the NFT hype, which I think brought a lot of spotlight onto cryptocurrencies. But essentially, I think the time in which people had in COVID, that downtime, for me, I was really able to assess what I wanted out of my career. And also it gave people, I think more people have become a bit more entrepreneurial with the extra time and downtime they have to really think about the problems and the solutions they want to fix.
Cool. Yeah, definitely give you opportunity to think and think about those passions and how you can help shape the world going ahead. Brilliant. Thank you for that. So you mentioned about changing working practices in terms of being remote and stuff like that. Is there anything else that had come out of the pandemic for yourselves that you found you had to change and then you perhaps stuck with?
So we had to adapt from like our initial concept, and what led us to get down the decentralized energy route was exploring different blockchain applications such as cryptocurrency mining. So essentially, obviously that work involves being in a warehouse and actually physically putting like the GPUs, the CPUs, the motherboards together, etc. And of course, when you're in a startup, you need to be collaborating, you need to be working together. And everybody knows that obviously in-person environments are so much more collaborative, and you're able to synergize. But I guess some of the habits or learnings that we took out of COVID was working fast on our feet and working remotely. And obviously, you know, you have to adjust to that. It can definitely prove difficult, but I think it's given us more confidence to work in disruptive environments. And, you know, we're grateful because we're able to also leverage leverage intel from people across the world. And not only that, but investors are more, I think maybe 10 or 20 years ago, not even 10 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, investors, you want to meet them in person. But now we're seeing a lot more action take place online, which is obviously corresponds with the tech industry as well. So yeah, those are the sort of learnings we had.
You for that. So what do you see as the future then? I mean, you're in a very obviously technological sector, so the future's bright potentially. I mean, obviously assuming that, but what do you see as from where you are now, looking ahead? How does the future look for you? But what are the main challenges of that?
Okay, so truth be told, I think there are a number of risks ahead of us as like a society, as a nation, as a government, etc. And most notably is the risk of technological threat, such as AI. And we don't have appropriate governance in government to actually, represent these sorts of industries. So if you have a majority parliament, or say you don't have enough representatives of people in parliament who understand technology and are passing legislation, this has significant ramifications for everyone in the ecosystem, consumers, the environment, etc. So that's a huge risk. I also think that blockchain specifically gets skewed. People start to assimilate blockchain with cryptocurrency with risk, etc. So it's definitely a bumpy ride to developing tech solutions. However, I think the future looks extremely promising on the other hand as well. So the way I like to describe decentralized energy, or at least the problem that we're solving, is if you look at the financial markets as of late as being heavily disrupted through technology, and we've seen the rise of incumbent like fintechs, etc., which are using basically legislation like the Payment Services Directive to actually solve problems in the financial markets without the need for a centralized body. So what I'm trying to say is we've seen the financial markets get disrupted, but energy markets, we haven't seen that as much just yet. So the future is looking promising. It's definitely an everybody's got to be involved sort of process. We can't just have we can't just lean on governments to, for example, let's talk about the mini budget, for example. It's not really supporting, even though it's been revoked, it doesn't really support promoting, startups and promoting innovation. So it involves obviously innovation from startups, support from government, and also education of everyday people to understand what the transition to clean energy means. So conclusively, I'd say there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of risks, but it's really important that everybody supports startups where they can. And obviously, we want to make the UK top of the tech map, because you obviously have Silicon Valley, and there's quite a lot of good startups that come out of Australia. So I'm hoping that the UK doesn't fall behind.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic summary there of the opportunities and the risks. You mentioned AI and governmental legislation and things like that. Stuff that I'm sure a lot of people don't really think about that goes on, but it's fantastic insight. So thank you for that. So then moving on to yourself, and so with the biggest learning, if you can pick one since you've been in business that you could share.
I would say take the risk and just do it, because I have spent so many years failing. It's okay to fail as well. I spent so many years umming and ahhing about whether to do something, or feeling like I don't have enough experience to do it, or even when I embarked on studying blockchain, I was like being told by my tutor, this technology hasn't developed yet. Are you sure you want to do this? And even in startups, you think, oh, is it worth it? But take the risk and put yourself out there and become something that I read in a book as well, which was really helpful, is if you can become highly skilled in two converging skills, obviously that's really unique. So I like to think that I'm really good at public speaking or, meeting with investors, building partnerships and things like that. And then if I combine that with technical expertise, although to be fair, I'm not a coder, but understanding fundamentally what you can do with blockchain, then obviously you set yourself up for success. So actually I have so many to say, I'll give you another one as well. And that would be look at future trends, where are we heading in the future? And nobody is safe. If you look at Arcadia, Blockbusters, Arcadia, obviously Topshop, Sir Philip Green, etc. You can never be too confident that your industry is always going to go the way it's going. And there's always going to be new solutions, new problems. So I think for anybody looking to get into a business, obviously the traditional textbooks would say what problem are you solving, but look at emerging trends and, I'd say that can really help initiate your passion for something. And obviously you've got to be passionate about what you're doing.
Brilliant. Some good learning, some good shares there. Thank you. Very valuable. So I suppose reflecting on those might be similar answers, but what would be the best advice you could give to someone starting out in business?
The best advice I would give to somebody is to read a lot, to fully understand your industry and your market to a T. Read the news not necessarily the news, but if you're in the energy sector, start looking at the valuations, start looking at the problems what problems are they incurring, because those are the sort of problems that you might incur. What legislation is going to come out and change things? For example, in the legal industry, I know there was had a friend who worked in personal injury, and basically there's something to do with the laws that changed around no win, no fee, etc. So that's just to give an example, but become a subject matter expert in the industry or the problem that you're solving, and definitely always be curious and open to learning. And also a really good tip I would say is a lot of people do want to genuinely help. So even just messaging people on LinkedIn, offering them a coffee in the space that they're in, that can help. And a huge tip would be as well to attend networking events. So how I actually got into working in startups, both of them, I wouldn't say failed, but I'm no longer working on them. But both of those startups were basically started from attending networking events, and one of which was a blockchain social impact event in Melbourne, and another one was an Amazon Web Services event. Because you're going to meet like-minded people at these events, and you never know, someone might already have a startup and you're the missing piece that they might need, or you might just meet interesting people who you both want to start something together. I mean, I met someone, I sold them a plant from Facebook, a very random story, but I sold a plant on Facebook Marketplace, and then we ended up starting a podcast, and then the podcast I'm no longer involved with, but the two guys who are doing it are still working on it, and now we actually do business together. So, don't underestimate the power of connections, networking, and just putting yourself out there, really.
Yeah, good advice. Love that. Thank you. Now, you mentioned earlier just about reading books and stuff like that. What do you use for inspiration? Is it reading books? Is it friends, family, team members, people you work with? What's inspiring you at the moment?
Definitely. So as part of the work that I do, we have to inform our investors about what's been happening in the business. So what we like to do at the start of our meetings is have a wrap up or sort of moments to look at what's been happening in the blockchain and decentralized energy space. You'll get everyone to sort of take themselves off mute or just put their hand up and talk about could be the crypto investments, it could be the market, etc. So as a result of that, we actually research valuations, what's happening in the regulatory market. So it's actively researching for those sorts of things. In terms of books, there's a really great book by Noah Wesserman called, I believe it's called Why Startups Fail. And it's basically a case study of 13 startups and why they failed. And you can learn a lot from failure. So looking at books is really, really helpful. I don't know whether this is good or bad, but I read the Financial Times like pretty much whenever I see it, you know, when I'm catching the train or something, I'll pick up a copy. I'm always wary of reading too much from a news outlet because I do think there is the chance that it could be biased. I like to read it because it has global coverage, and I think the Financial Times is probably one of the best. Although I did have a meeting with my mentor and he suggested that the Bloomberg business is the best. So I think, yeah, just getting a hold of like what's happening in the market is really important as well. So to give you an example, recently we've had, there's going to be a cap on the revenues that energy companies can make. And this is to help offset the cost of the global energy scheme in the UK. So I think the global energy scheme is going to cost 150 billion. And the cost of the revenue cap could bring in, say, maybe 2 or 3 billion. Now, what they've ascertained is that this is going to apply to renewable energy companies, but they haven't ascertained the level of which it will be capped, which means that if it's not competitive compared to Europe, investors will be like, well, why do I want to invest in clean tech in the UK when, you know, a lot of the profits are going to get capped? So it's always having an eye out on the market. But whatever industry you're in, whether you're, I don't know, making water bottles or you're in the beauty industry or you're in the sports industry, look at different, you know, news outlets, and there's some really good blockchain ones I recommend, and also a good podcast that you're interested in. My favorite podcast on blockchain and crypto is Bankless, because they're really unbiased and they're quite funny. So yeah, that's my advice.
Let's check it out. Thank you very much. Is there any sort of latest news, lastly, around your business that you may wish to share, or a website or anything like that for anyone to be directed to have a look at what you're up to?
Definitely, and thanks for asking that question. So essentially, we're at the stage that we're at, we're looking to partner with research organisations. What we're building is something very novel and unique to the market entirely. You obviously have solar generation companies that are providing energy services, but there's no one in the market that is quite combining different sources of renewable energy. Now, what we're building is very intensive in terms of, you know, intellectual capital and things. So we're looking to partner with researchers. We'd also be excited to hear from anyone who's just interested in the industry and wants to follow us. We're on LinkedIn, and we have our website is EcoGenTechnologies.io. I'll actually give you the link directly as well. And essentially, obviously investors, we're always speaking to investors, but we're partnering as well with organisations in this space. So without disclosing the name of them, we're looking to partner with you know, solar panel industry providers, and also companies in the ecosystem. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And we even speak to students. We're working with PhD students, or even we've had interns as well, who are just starting their career in tech. So we're always welcome to hear from these people.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sophia. We'll check the website out, have a look at LinkedIn, etc. And I wish you all the very best with it. I hope it goes from strength to strength, and yeah, watch this space for the future of it all.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate the time.
You're welcome.